So I am a man of my word, and I said I was going to give Dune Prophecy a second chance, and I did, and to my surprise, it actually got a lot better. The second episode was significantly better than the first episode. It is still very weird, and I think that it blends different genres together in a not always satisfying way, but interesting way nonetheless. And a part of me wonders if the weird nature to it is a way of Warner Brothers kind of priming us to get ready for Dune Messiah, which will inevitably be very weird as well. I don't think they've thought that far ahead. They're not like the Sisterhood or anything. But I do think that would be an interesting way of priming audiences to expect something different from the third Dune movie that they're previously weren't expecting. Now, I have to start by talking about my favorite character and the character that I think is the most interesting, and that is Desmond Hart. Desmond Hart, he claims to have been, attacked and eaten potentially by a sandworm, but survived that attack. And now the worm gave him these powers that he can now burn people. Like no matter where they are, he can just burn them from the inside out using his mind, which is like a really weird power to have, but also makes him really dangerous. And he also is the only one that can see through the Sisterhoods. They can see them using everyone else on all the different planets as puppets, as marionettes. He can see what they're doing, and that poses a real big threat to the Sisterhood. And Valya knows this, and Valya learns this at the end of the episode, which I'll get to in just a little bit. But yes, Desmond Hart, I don't think the show wants you to be on his side completely because he did kill a little kid in the first episode, but he's more complex, and there's a lot going on with his character that we're not aware of. He says he's doing all of this for the good of the Imperium, but what does that mean, and why would he care about all of that? There is something very interesting on him. We also find out that the voice doesn't work on him, so when Valya tries to get him to kill himself, it doesn't work. He refuses it because he is... I'm assuming that has to do with the incident with the worm, but I want to find out more about it. His character is just so interesting and poses such a big threat that it's very exciting for me personally, and the actor playing him is doing a great job. Now we get to Valya. Valya is very shocked by this. She goes to this planet Seculus Salusa Secundus, whatever. Weird sci-fi name. And then she finds out that this man is the one responsible for the death of her Sister Kasha and also of the little boy. And she wants to question him, and she does the truth sayer thing, and she finds out that what he's saying is true, or what he's saying he believes to be true, even though it's not the real truth. And she finds herself losing sort of her status with the Emperor because of this man in this very same episode. Like, her status has been revoked, and it's something that she didn't see coming exactly. And she definitely didn't see the fact that he would not succumb to the voice and actually pose a really big threat to her, because as he says, what scares her more is not being heard. It's like being heard and not being cared about what her opinion is, because she really wants to be powerful. Even though she wants to lurk in the shadows and use her power in a more subtle way, she still wants to have that power. And so he poses a threat to the entire Sisterhood, and she's like, no. And she is willing to do whatever it takes to protect that power that the Sisterhood has, which we find out earlier in the episode includes potentially putting Lila's life at risk, and risking her death. She doesn't care if it means the overarching good of the Sisterhood. What does that good mean? We don't quite know just yet. We don't know what her vision for the Sisterhood is, but we're trying to unravel that a little bit more. But this includes putting Lila's life at risk. So she tells her sister that she wants Lila to undergo the Agony, which is essentially what Lady Jessica and Paul Atreides did in the second movie, whereas they ingest this poison that there's no antidote for, and they have their own body chemistry break down the molecules or some sciencey stuff like that. And through that, they're able to access their genetic memories. So memories of their ancestors, and that's really what they want. They want Lila to access her great-great-grandmother's memories, who is Raquella, who is the founder of the Sisterhood, to find more information about what this reckoning is and how to potentially stop it. But obviously, Lila isn't ready for this. This takes years to prepare for, and they're just kind of throwing her in trial by fire. So this actually gives us one of the best sequences in this episode, and when I really started to enjoy this episode fully, and that is when she goes through the Agony and she's in her own mind and it's like a horror movie almost, where you have all these like weird shapes. They kind of look like mummies mixed with ghosts. And so one of them is Raquella, who kind of is talking to her about the agony, tells her that the person is going to be one born in blood and then born again in spies. So we're like, it's a whole lot of cryptic messages, which I'm sure will make sense as the show goes on. But the interesting part about this is that then Dorothea, who was the woman that Valya killed in the first episode with the voice, she tries to get a revenge for her death and ends up killing Lila. And Lila does not survive the agony, which is really heartbreaking because I actually ended up really liking her. She was one of the characters in the Sisterhood that I actually kind of felt something for. And all of the other sisters, they see this. One of them sees this as like martyrdom, kind of like the greatest honor is to give your life for this cause. Another one's like, they don't really care about individual sisters. They care about the sisterhood, which says a lot about not just like the world of this story, but I think in real life, I think there's a lot of people who go to war and who fight for the idea of something, not so much the individual lives of the people who comprise that idea, which is really interesting dynamic to have in this sci-fi show. Those are all the things that I really liked about this show. There are some things that I still think don't quite make sense to me, and that includes basically anything that happens with like the emperor's family, the princess, her brother, that Atreides, who we find out is in Atreides, but he's also the swordsman, and he's like teaching her fight, and he's fighting for the rebellion, but he's like within the palace, so he's able to get these access and give that to the rebellion. And then we find out that the rebellion is actually just another part of how the Sisterhood controls the entire world, essentially, or worlds. They have these like checks and balances, so that when the great houses or the emperor gets together, they have the rebel forces in there, but now they're finding out they don't need the rebel forces anymore, so they're trying to figure out how to like get rid of them. It's very interesting dynamics that happen. You just figure out how they're just in everything, even though people aren't aware of it. They think it's their own free will, but really it's the sisters having set this up for years and years and years. Really interesting stuff. But again, the actual things that happen with them, I don't really care about those characters that much. I think that they're feel kind of generic to me, and I feel like that's really one of the weakest points of the show, is that it still feels a little generic in terms of some of the visual styles that they use. Some of like the sci-fi aspects to it feel like generic sci-fi, or just like things to look cool that don't really make sense within the world. And also the motivations are like, everyone wants power, right? But what does power mean to those people? Why do they want power? Because I don't think power is just like an overall thing that people just want. I think there's a reason for why they would want power, and it's different for every person, which is what makes that quest for power so interesting. And it hasn't quite gotten there yet, minus for like a few characters, and like Desmond Hart's, the mysterious nature behind him is what makes him so captivating. Valya, you kind of understand why she would. It's like some of the characters who are the most interesting are because you understand those motivations specifically to them, not just generically, which is, again, I'm hoping that the show makes that a little bit better in the future. But yeah, those are my overthoughts on Dune Prophecy episode 2. I ended up actually liking it a lot more than episode 1, and I'm definitely going to stick with the show at this point. I mean, there's only 4 episodes left, and if they each get considerably better, then I'm sure that by the end of it, we'll actually have a show that is really interesting. And I really want to know what the purpose of this show is in the overall Dune universe is, like where this fits in and why they decided to tell this story. So for that reason alone, I am sold on this show. I'm going to watch the rest of the episodes, and I will be here reporting on them, breaking it down, letting you know what I love, what I didn't love. And I would love you to do the same thing, because I really do think that the conversations that comes from like watching TV and films together with other people is what makes it worth it. So if you like this episode, let me know. If you didn't like it, let me know as well. I want to know all of your thoughts on that, and I will be back next week to discuss all that there is to discuss for episode 3.